We are starting the meeting now, and I would like thank you very much. So please remember to tag Rotary One in the social media platforms that you use, and you can check the chat box to see the links if you don't have them already. Well, I would like to welcome you to the 5,571st meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago, the very first Rotary Club in the world, founded 116 years ago. You have me today, Marga Hugo, your president-elect. Our president, Eric Kempel, is out somewhere in Alaska. As of this time, I think it is still an undisclosed location, but if he has access to any Wi-Fi connection, we will see some photos this evening. So stay tuned, okay? So you know the rules already, but it doesn't hurt to repeat them again for those who are coming to join us for the first time. You can type your question in the chat box. Please remain on mute throughout the speaker presentation. And please honor our speakers and our time by keeping your questions succinct. And we would appreciate one question per person. All right. So now on the general announcements, I'm not going to talk for about 30 seconds, but I really would like to show you a very special video that answers the question, what is Rotary? So Tamra, we're ready.
For over 100 years, Rotary members have taken action when challenges arise. We know what people can do when they come together and put others before themselves.
The team lead said they will continue the campaign to fight against the coronavirus.
Local Rotary clubs deliver food and supplies to people in need.
Strangers become friends, helping hands multiply, and problems turn into solutions. We are Rotary. We are people of action. Learn more at rotary.org/action.
Well, I find this very inspiring because on some of those images, there are some images that our Rotarians can relate to, as when some members of our club were bringing food cooked by our chef, Alita Williams, future president of the club, by the way, and bringing food to first responders at different hospitals. So now, as I put my hat on as the chair of the annual campaign for this year, and as you know, you hear me every week talk about it, but we have a goal of raising $75,000. $60,000 of those go to the Rotary One Foundation, and the other 15 to the Rotary International Foundation. Both foundations, essentially we get the money back to do the projects that we're so passionate about. So if you look at that, the Rotary One Foundation, we have $48,928, and we are about $16,000 short of getting to our goal. So today is June 8th. You know what you need to do if you haven't done it yet. And if you have any friends who would like to contribute to our foundation, that is so welcome too, because we have a lot of good plans for this coming year. So we need your contributions. And then the Rotary International Foundation, our goal was for $15,000. And look at that. As of today, not only we have $15,360, but a donation of $1,000 came in today. So we really broke our record, our own goal. So I invite all of us to emulate Simone Biles. She breaks her own record, so why can't we do the same? And I would be super, super grateful if every member of the club could donate, even if it is $5, but that we all know we did a little bit something for the Rotary One Foundation. So you need what to do. Now I have to move to the next topic. And what I'm going to do is to introduce David Hirsch, who is a financial service advisor with UBS Financial Services, and he is the wonderful co-program chair for the Rotary Club of Chicago. David has multiple hats. One of them is he's an author of a book titled A Father's Journey to Break the Cycle of Father Absence. And he's an outspoken advocate for children and fathers. He also gave a TEDx talk entitled Why We Need to Break the Cycle of Father Absence. And David will have the honor of introducing his friend Warren Rustand. And David, the floor is yours now.
Marga, thank you for that nice introduction. I'm communicating with you from Key West, Florida. The background is a real background. It's not one of those fake backgrounds that some of us put up behind the scenes, and I'm hoping the connection will be a good one.
It is.
My privilege today to introduce my friend Warren Rustand of Tucson, Arizona, who's a serial entrepreneur, a former White House fellow, former NBA basketball player, past CEO of the World Presidents Organization, co-founder and dean of the Entrepreneurs Organization, Leadership Academy, international chairman emeritus of L3, a leadership organization, frequent speaker, author, and perhaps most importantly, father of 7 and grandfather of 19. Warren, thank you for joining us today.
David, thank you so much. It's great to be with you, and it's always great to be introduced by a friend. And you were overly generous. I'm sure my wife would have a counter position on all of those things that you just said about me that were nice, but we won't allow her to talk today, so that will be good. I'm glad to be with and happy to be with the greatest and oldest Rotary Club in the world, so thank you very much for your invitation to join you. I'm excited about that. David, I'm especially impressed with what you're doing with fathers and children. And it's amazing the reach that you have and the influence that you're having for good between fathers and their children, and the kind of instruction that we're getting from so many great fathers around the world. So, David, thanks for the good work that you're doing. And Marga, congratulations on being president-elect of this great organization and all the service that you do. And I know that we have an audience that spans the globe today, which is wonderful. Of all the countries that I heard expressing themselves earlier today, I think I've been in all of those countries. And so I'm excited to even return and spend more time there, which will be great. And Tamara, I got to thank you because you put everything together. And you do it so seamlessly and so well. And so I just want to thank you for your good administrative efforts to make sure that it went well today. And while with no promises for technology, we all hope our technology works. Isn't it great that we can all be tied together in a common environment, common thinking about a subject from all over the world? And its technology has advanced to such a great degree. It's marvelous. And aren't we going to be excited to see what technology does for us in the future and spans the reach that we have around the world? It's really amazing. So it's great to be with a global organization that does so much service and so much good. You might be interested to know that I was chosen as a Rotary Fellow when I was in my very early 20s. And as a result of that, spent time in Australia. My very first trip to Australia when I was about 21 years old, 22 years old. Subsequently, we owned businesses there. I traveled back and forth a great deal to Australia. So I think that Rotary helped me learn about Australia, which then allowed me to invest in Australia, which allowed me to do a lot of things. So Rotary serves as a catalyst for good, not only in our individual lives, but in our collective lives as well, in the kinds of things that we get to do that help other people, influence other people. And the Rotary projects are known well around the world. I've attended Rotary meetings all over the world, and it's always been exciting to find great people and great stories everywhere we go. So it's a lot of fun. So your club history is phenomenal. I know David was saying that you were looking for some really great speakers, and he couldn't find any, so he called me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, David, for that high compliment. And I hope that something I can say today might be helpful to all of us. And so what I thought we might do is I'll speak for about 15 or 20 minutes, if that's okay with you, and then have as many questions as we can and answer as many questions as possible, because I think conversation and dialogue is always more interesting than monologue. So we'll talk a bit about that. I should tell you maybe a bit more about myself. I was born very poor on an isolated farm in a state called Minnesota near the Canadian border. And I was born there, and we grew and ate what we grew. The nearest village was 3 miles away, 150 people. The nearest community was really 10 miles away, 1,000 people. So we were quite isolated. The winters were very, very cold. You may wonder why I live in Arizona. It's because I was raised in Minnesota. So I'm a Midwesterner by birth and by raising, and I love it. And I spend a lot of time in and out of Chicago and the Midwest as a result of it. But I'm happy to be in Arizona where the sun shines every day. But being born poor gave me a particular perspective, right? This notion that we had to work hard every day, that the cows had to be milked every morning at 5:30, whether it was snowy or not. The crops had to be planted. The crops had to be harvested. I was the only boy in our family, so I spent a lot of time with my father. And he was always instructing me, always helping me, coaching me. And in many ways, he was preparing me for a life that I wasn't leading at the time. He opened the doors of possibilities by his words and his thoughts. And I think, David, as we think about what fathers can do with children, it's to open up the world to possibilities, right? It's to be loving and kind, but to talk about potential and talk about those opportunities. And my father certainly did that for me. After leaving Minnesota, my father ended up buying several farms and then decided to move to Southern California. We went to Newport Beach, California, in that area. And so I learned to surf and have a good time and enjoy the ocean. And somebody handed me a basketball and said, maybe if you dribble a basketball, one day that'll be good for you. And by the time I was 18, graduating from high school, there were many universities around to offer me the opportunity to go play basketball at the universities. And I chose the University of Arizona for a variety of reasons. About the third day I was there, I met the most beautiful co-ed in the entire world. She was gorgeous. She was smart. She was funny. She was just fantastic. And of course, being this really handsome, chiseled out of granite guy from California, I thought I would ask her out. And so I asked her out for a date. And of course, she said, no, I don't want to go out with you. I was stunned. I couldn't believe it. Here's this good looking guy, right? And she said no. And so then I asked her out the next week as well. And she said no again. And I asked her out the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh week. And she said no every time. It was remarkable to me. But being persistent, being an entrepreneur, having drive and ambition, knowing that I wanted to take her out, I asked her out for 53 consecutive weeks. And she said no 53 times. Then on the 54th weekend, I knew that the guy she was dating was out of town for his parents' wedding anniversary. And so I knew she was open for the weekend. So I went to her the 54th week and I said, will you have dinner with me? Remarkably, she said no for the 54th time. But then sometimes men get stupid, right? So I started singing and dancing and telling stories. And pretty soon she was laughing. She said, okay, I'll have dinner with you. By 10:30 that night, we had determined that we didn't ever need to date anyone else again. We were married 2 years later, and we started on our quest. And that quest was to have a large family. We decided to have 15 children. I know that sounds crazy, but we decided to have 15 children for two reasons. One, it was my jersey number in basketball, and it was also my IQ. So we thought that that would be a really good situation if we could have 15 children. Well, as luck turns out, we were 4 years into our marriage. We were desiring to have children, and our doctors told us it was biologically impossible for the two of us to have children. And so we're enthusiastic and optimistic. So we decided we would get licensed by the state of Arizona and we would adopt children. There are many children who need adoption. And then we met a young Harvard physician who had moved to our community who had specialized in fertility. And so we started talking with him and he said, well, let me put you in the hospital. I'll check you both out. He released me. He kept my wife in for a while. He said he had to reconnect the plumbing and the wiring. I don't know what the technical terms were. But at any rate, so she was released and 30 days later, she was pregnant with our first child. And so for the next 14 years, every 2 years, we had a baby. Now, my only concern, of course, is they look just like the doctor, which is something we'll deal with another time. But it was just one of those things, right? So we had a great time. So it's just a wonderful experience for us to have 7 children, 6 boys and a girl, 19 grandchildren. And we are unlike other American families for the most part. We all live together on 60 acres on a farm in the middle of the city of Tucson. And so our family is very close. We're together all the time. And so what we do as parents, what we do as families really matters. And we have a wonderfully close family and we have a lot of time together. To give you a sense of my wife, We had returned from a trip to Australia a while back, and plane delays and airports, and it was about 30 hours for us to get back to our home. And maybe like you, when you travel, we are so delighted to get back into our own bed. And so we got back into our bed. We were tired, exhausted. We were holding hands. We were lying, looking at each other. Our eyes met. And at times like that, oftentimes, men, we like to ask those deep philosophical questions, those really penetrating questions. And so I asked her one of those. I said, if I die, will you marry again? One of those deep philosophical questions. And so finally I said, honey, if I lose everything, if I lose the cars, the boats, the planes, the ranch, the condominiums, the home, stocks, the bonds, if I lose everything, would you still love me? She thought for a moment, and then she said, yes, I'd still love you, and I'd miss you too. So I think sometimes we shouldn't take our spouses for granted. I think what she was saying to me and sending the signal was, don't take me for granted. As we meet here today, there are lots of things going on in the world. And I recall a time in the 1920s when there were lots of things going on in the world. And in fact, the economy wasn't particularly good, but there was a young man who had a vision about what he wanted to do, something that had never been done before in the world. He wanted to fly an airplane across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, today, if you and I go to New York City and get on a plane, we'll be in Paris in 6.5 hours. Easy to do. But in 1926, it had been never been done. In fact, that was just about 2 decades after Orville and Wilbur Wright made their first flight. And so this young man, Charles Lindbergh, in 1926, had a dream and a vision to fly a single-engine airplane across the Atlantic. And the plane had to be specially designed because every inch of space in the plane had to have gasoline. His math would tell him that he had to keep the airplane aloft for 38 hours in order to make it across the Atlantic Ocean. That was an average speed of about 85 miles an hour for 38 hours. If he couldn't keep it aloft for that long, he would be short of his goal and get very wet. But yet he had a vision and a dream, and so he decided to do that. And he had a team around him who believed in that vision as well. And soon it was time, but in the end, it was just he and the airplane. He had to actually start the plane, go down the runway, get airborne, and fly his vision, his dream. And he did just that. And 34 hours later, he landed outside of Paris. Throngs of people came out to see him. There was joy and celebration about an event that man had done for the first time. And there were lots of questions asked. And his response to a question struck me as I was reading his account of that activity. He said, we live today, actually, in our dreams of yesterday. And by so living, we live to dream again. We live today, you and I are gathering today on this particular Zoom call because of our dreams of yesterday. And by dreaming today, we will live in those dreams tomorrow. Dreaming and visioning is really important for us. And when I think of the really exceptional people in the White House, in the military, in my basketball career and other places that I've had the chance with whom to associate over years, CEOs, politicians, military leaders, a host of interesting people, I have found that they have 3 things in common that are really pretty interesting. They have clarity of vision, certainty of intent, and the power of values. That they all 3 understand those and the importance of those. And I would ask those of us on this Zoom call today to really think about that. How many of us have clarity of vision? Regardless of our age as we gather here today, how many of us really know with certainty and clarity where we're going and when we're going to get there? And what does that look like, feel like, smell like, taste like? How many of us actually walk into our future and feel that at that moment, and then walk ourselves backward to present state to really appreciate and understand where we are and who we are? There's a quote I like very much. Some people see but have no vision. Some people hear but have no understanding. Too often we go through life too fast, too busy, too tired. And we don't fully understand and appreciate what we're about, where we're going, how we might get there. There's a story in Alice in Wonderland where she's walking down a road. She's happy. She's excited about where she's going. And then she comes to a fork in the road. And you remember the story well. She's very confused as to which direction to go. And that's when the Cheshire Cat appears. And the Cheshire Cat said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "I'm confused. I was going down the road and now there's a fork in the road and I don't know which fork to take." And the Cheshire Cat asks that quintessential question that we need to ask of ourselves. The cat said, "Where are you going?" If we don't know where we're going, any road will do. But if we know where we're going, if our vision is taking us to a destination, to a place, then we know precisely which road we have to take. But all too often we get distracted, don't we? Because life is busy. There's always a shiny new object. There's always a new book with a new idea. There's always a new speaker with something else to say. But we need to get back to basics, don't we? And basic is clarity of vision. Well, how do you get that? Well, it takes time. It takes space. In our daily schedule, shouldn't we really create some open space every day where we think about where we're going? That we have that clear vision about what's next in our lives. And when we have that and we act with more certainty, we are almost always going to get to our destination. But too often we get distracted, as I said, and too often other things come into play. And as a result of that, we stumble a bit and fumble a bit about where we're going. And so I would submit to you today that the most important thing we can have individually and for our families, for our businesses, for our communities, is clarity of vision. Where are we going? When I was working in the White House as appointment secretary and cabinet secretary to President Gerald Ford, I worked with him for the 9 months leading up to his presidency. He had never been elected vice president, nor was he ever elected president. He got there through succession and appointment. But I recall on August 6, 1974, working in his office when a senior staff person came over and said to him, "Mr. Vice President, prepare to be president." And when he said that, I was wondering whether or not the vice president had ever really thought about becoming president of the United States. Certainly the president, Richard Nixon, was under siege at that time. And it appeared as if his presidency might fall. But I was curious as to whether or not the vice president had really thought about the enormous possibility that he might become president. I was a 29-year-old farm kid who got there through a White House fellowship, and I happened to be working with the vice president of the United States. Serendipity had played a role for me, which was very important. And so I was curious as I looked at the vice president when he heard those words, "Mr. Vice President, prepare to be president," what he was thinking. He swiveled his chair to me and said immediately, "Warren, have the following 6 people here at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning for a transition team meeting." Not only had he thought about it, he had a vision for it. He had a plan for it. He knew who his closest advisors were going to be. He knew what that looked like. And the next morning, as he opened a transition team meeting with those key advisors around him, he pulled out of his pocket handwritten notes, multiple pages of what that transition vision was all about. He had not only dreamed it and visioned it and thought about that, but he had converted that to an actual plan of action. Would that be true of our lives? Are we that certain of where we're going and how to get there? So the first important step in leadership is clarity of vision. And I will drop a few names for you right now just to impress you. Okay, no, for no other reason, just try to impress you. But the senior team in the White House at that time consisted of some of the following people: Colin Powell, Bob Gates, Don Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, Henry Kissinger, Brent Scowcroft, Jim Baker. That was the senior team with whom I interacted every day. All have gone on to have distinguished careers from that point forward, influencing American government and American policy over decades. But I got to associate with each of them and understood that each of them had clarity of vision about their roles and responsibilities in the United States government during that period of time, as did the President of the United States. Do we have clarity of vision? The second great principle of leadership is certainty of intent. It's the notion that once we create our vision, we must intentionally act on it every day if we are to achieve it. It's not good enough just to have a vision. That's all nice. But unless we act on it every day, we will probably fail to achieve it. Creating time and space to have the vision, understanding that people who have gone before us, Mandela, Mother Teresa, Winston Churchill, Gandhi, have had great visions for their lives. So too can we have a vision for our life. Intentionality matters. Moving from vision to action is a critical piece. And intentionality allows us to do that. Now, we also know the old quote, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I intended to call my mom. I intended to lose 10 pounds. I intended to take that trip. I intended. We hear that a lot. The reality is we need to convert intentionality to action. The world is changed by people who do, not by people who feel. And so doing is a bias which we should have. And Rotarians notoriously have that bias. It is an active organization. It is a doing-based organization. But you and I individually must also be action-based in our lives, moving intentionality to reality through constructive acts. When I was with my father on the farm driving that John Deere tractor as a young boy, he would often talk about great books, the opera, places he had traveled. He was expanding my mind in a way that I couldn't understand at that time and really didn't understand until my late teens and early 20s. But he taught me a poem at that time that I think applies to certainty of intent. It's called Think. I think I'd rather not think, for thinking is like a disease. I know I'd rather not know, for stupidity comes with such ease. And not so much stupid as content with the state, going through the day knowing only that I ate. But to think means to live, and to live means to do, and doing is what is done, but only by a few. Most people are good talkers. Far fewer are those who are great doers. We need to be doers in our life. Intentionality matters. The last great principle of leadership is the power of values. And I talk about all three of these principles in the book I've written called The Leader Within Us. The power of values, how we model our behavior, really matters. We are being observed all the time because we have set ourselves apart as leaders for the most part in our lives. That's why we're members of Rotary. That's why we're leading companies. That's why we're senior partners. That's why we're doing good things. And so as we lead, we need to appreciate that the values that we show every day tell people who we are. It's not the words we say that matter. It's our actions that matter. Words just tell people who we want to be. Our actions tell people who we are. And so this notion is that we demonstrate our belief system, the power of our values, by how we live our lives every day. There are many observers, people that we will never recognize, who observe our actions and determine our character in the absence of a discussion with us. So as we are being observed, are we living our values? Are we saying we believe this and we act the same way? Are we the same way on stage that we are off stage? Is there a consistency of the values in which we believe? Because that's the power of leadership. The power of being consistent, the power of walking the talk becomes really essential for what we want to do in our lives and getting things done as we want to get done. Well, Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, didn't he? And he said there are three moments of truth in a human being's life. The first moment is when we realize what our core beliefs and values actually are. The second is when we commit to those core beliefs and values. And the third moment of truth is when we act on those core beliefs and values. First, know what our core beliefs and values are. Second, commit to them. And then thirdly, act on them every day. So how we act matters. So as we think about the three great principles and foundational elements philosophically and directionally of leadership, it's clarity of vision, certainty of intent, and the power of values. If we get those three right, our leadership will be remarkable and extraordinary. As I close before questions, I would say this. There are four things that will never come back in our lifetime. This was written about in 632 AD by Omar ibn al-Khalif. He was the third caliph, and he wrote this. He said, there are four things that will never come back: the sped arrow, the spoken word, the wasted second, and the neglected opportunity. The sped arrow is the act of violence. Once perpetrated, cannot be withdrawn. It's gone forever. The spoken word, those things that we say in anger that hurt a person's heart, and no matter how much we apologize, we can never take the hurt off that person's heart. It's indelibly imprinted for all time. The wasted second, we get 86,400 seconds a day to live. No one gets more time. No one gets less time. It only matters what we do with that time. But once those seconds escape us, they are gone forever. And fourthly, the neglected opportunity. How many of us have opened the door to opportunity and have failed to recognize what it is? Because we haven't systematically prepared continuous learning, continuous growth. Learn and grow is the essential ingredient to recognizing opportunities. So you all have been very patient to listen to me today, and I appreciate it so much. You have no idea how honored I am to be speaking with the members of Chicago Rotary. Your reputation precedes you, and thank you for that wonderful, wonderful honor. I hope that one thing I've said today will stick with you in a way that influences your life and will make you better at something you do. In that case, we both win. I'll be happy to respond to any questions you may have. And thank you again so much, David, for the wonderful introduction. Marga, President-elect, thank you for hosting us today. We appreciate that. We hope Eric gets back soon from wherever he is to finish out his year. But thank you so much. And Tamara, thank you for your wonderful administrative capabilities and skills.
Wow. That was amazing. Thank you, Warren. I'm going to have to add the word comedian when I introduce you next time. I love your self-appreciating sense of humor. There is no one I know that is more intentional than Warren Rustand. And the more people that I've met who know you say the same thing, is I want to be more like Warren. So I am one of those members of the Warren Rustand fan club. And before we open it up to Q&A, because I know more about your story than most of the people on the Zoom call today, I want you to share that story about the list that your dad created when you first graduated from high school, and then the subsequent list, which I think underscores your intentionality and focus.
When I graduated from high school, I was fortunate to be honored in a variety of ways. For my basketball, for my leadership, I was student body president of my high school. I was number one in my graduating class, those kinds of things. And so I was the commencement speaker for our class. And as I walked down off the stage, there was my father, my mother, my sisters, and my father had a piece of paper in his hand. And he said, well, you've done well in high school. Now, what are you going to do in college? And I hadn't given it that much thought at that point in time. But I was excited to go off and party and have fun with my girlfriend and do those kinds of things after graduation. And so I rattled off 5 quick things. I said, Dad, I want to be an All-American basketball player. I want to be student body president. I want to be number one in my class. I want to be Phi Beta Kappa, and I want to be a Rhodes Scholar. Thinking that would suffice for my father. And he wrote down each one of those 5. And then he did an interesting thing. He said, please sign this and date it. So I signed and dated that. And then we walked away. And I went off for my party and having fun for my senior night, and he and my family went home. 4 years later, I graduated from the University of Arizona, and just so happened I was on the commencement stage that night as well, and the speaker. And so what happened was I walked down off the stage after all the ceremonies were over, and there was my dad. And he had this strange piece of paper in his hand. And he said to me, well, son, let's see how you did. And he opened and unfolded this piece of paper, and it was dated 4 years previous from my high school graduation, and I had signed it. And he drew 2 columns. He drew a line on the piece of paper next to those 5 things that I had mentioned. He marked one column success and the other column failure. And he said, well, were you an All-American basketball player? And I said, yes. And he checked success. Were you student body president? Yes, check success. Were you number 1 in your class? Yes, check success. Were you a Rhodes Scholar? And I said, well, Dad, remember I wanted to be, and I was competing, and then we decided to get married, and you couldn't be married and be a Rhodes. He said, were you a Rhodes Scholar? And I said, no, and he marked failure. And then he said, were you Phi Beta Kappa? And I said, well, Dad, I had that one bad semester. I had really good grades overall, but had that one bad semester. Were you Phi Beta Kappa? And I said, no. And he checked failure. And in that moment, I came to appreciate what we're capable of doing versus what we actually do. And he didn't have to say a lot of words, because 40% of the time, in his view, I had failed in my college career. Of the 5 things I set out to do, 2 I did not achieve. And he didn't have to preach to me about that. The lesson was learned. And I have so appreciated it. So, David, I hope that story helps a little bit.
It does, but you didn't talk about the list of 100.
Oh, the other list. So when I was 19 years old, a sophomore at the university taking a philosophy class, there was something in the class that gave me pause, and I stopped to think about, well, what am I going to do with my life? And so I started writing a list. And I wrote a list of 100 things that I want to do in my life. I actually have that in my backpack sitting about 2 feet from me right now. I carry it everywhere I go. And for the next 59 years, once a week, I would look at that list of 100. And you know what happens when you look at your goals frequently? You tend to accomplish them. You tend to do them. You tend to be reminded of what you want to do. And so over these many years, I've continuously worked at that list of 100. In fact, I was doing well enough and making progress well enough on that original list of 100 that about 20 years ago, I made a second list of 100. So you'd ask yourself, well, of that original 100, how many has he actually accomplished? And I can tell you the number is 98. There are 2 that I probably will never accomplish. One, I wanted to visit every country in the world recognized by the United Nations. But the United Nations is a little tricky because the countries get divided and there are new names and it's a moving target. So it's a little tough. But I've traveled to 198 countries today, and I will continue to travel with my wife and our children. The second was that I probably will never accomplish is that I wanted to be president of the United States. And maybe if I'd have run in 2016, I could have won, because we proved that we'd elect almost anyone to be president of the United States. But even somebody like me. So I think that's more elusive. I may not accomplish that, but I think it's important that we have a roadmap, just like Alice in Wonderland needed to know which road to take. I know which road to take because I wrote my goals when I was 19 years old, and I have lived to achieve those goals. And that's the intentionality. Certainty of intent matters.
Thank you for sharing. We're running out of time. We could talk for hours and hours. So I'm just going to field one question from the chat, and I'll just read it. Societies appear to be losing sight of the importance of values as extreme personalities capture the attention of the masses. What can be done to restore focus on values?
Great question, and a lot of us are thinking about that. I think the first step is we have to be sure of our values and live our values and be a model to others. We have no idea how many people we can influence through our own values and our own lives. That's really the first thing. And as we've influenced those other people for good with those common values, we need to discover the common values that we have with other people. Today, it seems to me, the first thing we want to do is make a judgment about other people being wrong and why their lives aren't very good and why their beliefs aren't very good. And we call each other names and we want to put each other in buckets and categorize each other. Why don't we start our conversations and our new relationships with what we have in common, not what we have differently? Because I think we all want to have good marriages. I think we want to have great families. I think we want our children to be well educated. I think that we see the disparities in our society and we want those corrected. We want things to be better for all people. I think we have a lot in common. And I think, David, if we could reach out to other people in the sense of what do we have in common? What do we believe in together and use that as a basis for going forward? I believe we can find common ground on a lot of things. Will there be things that separate us? Yes. But we can disagree without being disagreeable. We don't have to be angry with people. We don't have to be upset. The fact is we have free agency and free choice, and we can believe what we want. Let's respect others who have different beliefs. Let's live our beliefs, and then let's find common ground as a way of going forward together.
Yep.
Well, that was fabulous. Thank you so much. Marga, I'm going to turn the Zoom call back to you. Warren, thanks again.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Warren. Do you hear an echo when I speak?
Just a little bit.
Okay, all right. So I don't know. I'm not sure what is happening. Well, Warren, oh my goodness, amazing and so true, because that's how the United States was created. People came from different places, and then we became Americans. So, and we live in a great country. In spite of all the failures, we can have the mistakes. But you know what? So many millions want to come here. There must be a good reason, right? So anyways, just to tell you what we do when we have wonderful speakers and everybody who comes to visit us, we give them a little gift. And what you're going to get is a little candle that has been made by a group called Bright Endeavors, which is an organization whose mission is to empower young moms by providing transitional jobs and skills training. So not only these products help these young moms, but it also supports their kids and ultimately our communities. So it will come in the mail to you. And well, I wish I had a chance to give it in person. Why not? You know, we can arrange that. So,
Marga, if I may, thank you for the gift. I appreciate it so much. But I would also like to make a gift. I would like to make a gift to the Rotary One Foundation of $500 in the quest for your goal. And so thank you very much for allowing me to be with you today.
Oh my gosh, Warren, this is so wonderful. Thank you so much. And, you know, we'll certainly look for a chance to tell you what specifically is the work we have been doing this year and what we have what we're planning for next year. So I think you will smile and you will see those $500 put to good use. Big thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Wow.
Okay, so now, you know, you would be amazed. There was another virus going around Chicago at the same time of COVID-19, but that virus resulted in over 20 people joining the club since the pandemic started. So it's been a wonderful year. I would say we have the director of membership here, Laura Inns, that is going to induct one new member, Adekunle Adebayo from Nigeria, who's living in this area now. But you know, we've had about 25 new members this year. And Laura, I will let you induct Adekunle so Warren can hear what it is. What does it mean to be a Rotarian? Go ahead, Laura, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marga. Yes, another new induction. We've been having a lot of them lately, and it's very exciting. It is my great pleasure on behalf of the Board of Directors and the members of the Rotary Club of Chicago to welcome you, Adekunle, representative of Rotary One. We welcome you not only for the fine fellowship that we shall share, but also for your talents, abilities, and enthusiasm that will help us carry out our many projects to make our community, our country, and the world a better place in which to live. Now, Rotary is not a political organization, but all Rotarians are vitally concerned with everything pertaining to good citizenship, and the election of good men and women to public office. Rotary is not a charitable organization, yet its activities exemplify the charity and the sacrifices that one should expect from people who believe that they have a responsibility to help others. Rotary is not a religious organization, but it is built upon those eternal principles that have served as the moral compass for people throughout the ages. So what is Rotary? Rotary is an organization of business and professional people pledged to upholding the highest professional standards. Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and international peace can be achieved when business people unite under the banner of service. Adekunle, you have been chosen for membership in the Rotary Club of Chicago because your fellow Rotarians believe you to be a leader in your profession and because you manifest the intelligence and commitment of heart that fit you to interpret and impart the message of Rotary. You are a representative of your profession in this club, and any information of an educational value pertaining to your profession must naturally come to us through you. At the same time, you become an ambassador from us to your profession. We rely on you to carry our principles and ideals of service to those who share your professional activity. The community will know and judge Rotary by your embodiment of it in character and service. And we accept you as a member because we know our principles and organization will be safe in your keeping. Now, here's the tough one. We expect you to give us the inspiration that will help us to become better Rotarians. So it's with this hope that we welcome you as the newest member of the Rotary Club of Chicago, and you will be receiving a Rotary One pin, which is unique to our club, shaped with the number 1, because as we all know, we are the first club in the world. So welcome, Adekunle, and with that, I'll ask you to unmute yourself, and you can say a few words to introduce yourself to the club.
Thank you, Laura. My name is Adekunle Adeshegun Adebayo, past president, Rotary Club of Ota, District 910, Nigeria. I'm into nursing, and I'm happily married to Miss Adefunke Adebayo. I'm blessed with 3 children, a boy and 2 girls. Thank you. And
welcome to the club. I'm very excited to have somebody with such a history of Rotary already established. And with that, we'll turn it back over to Marga.
Welcome, Adekunle. We look forward to seeing you in our meetings in person when we start. And all right, now one thing, as you who have been here many times know, that have noticed that I skipped, and it is our thought of the day. And not only we have skipped it, but then, forgive me, Connor, because the person who's going to give the thought of the day is Connor Gee, our past president and district governor nominate designate. This very long title means that Connor will be our district governor in the years 2023-2024. In Rotary, we're very well organized and plan ahead. So, Connor, please give us a thought of the day. And I also would like to say that Connor, on June 22nd at 4:30 p.m. our time, he's going to be speaking at the Box Hill Central Club in Melbourne, Australia. And the topic is Youth in Rotary. So tune in. The link is going to be, it's already in the gyrator. But now, Connor, I will let you say your thought of the day. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marga. Appreciate the opportunity. So some of you might have heard of Millard Fuller. He's the founder of Habitat for Humanity, which Rotary International actually has a partnership with. And he wrote a book called Building Materials for Life. And so I just want to read one of the entries called Short Lines, which I think is very appropriate for today's program. Millard Fuller says, I give a lot of commencement speeches at colleges and universities. I always feel privileged and glad to have had the opportunity to share my thoughts, ideas, and challenges with those who are about to embark on a lifetime of applying what they've learned during their years of study. I remember one particular commencement address I gave at Ottawa University in Kansas. In that speech, I challenged the students to seek out the short lines in life and to get into one of those lines to serve. I pointed out that there are both long lines and short lines in the job market and in life. Long lines have where the jobs are very desirable and there's great pay, good working conditions, bright associates, and interesting challenges. The short lines are for the less appealing jobs, not good pay, less desirable. Not many people apply for such jobs. Many times I said, unless you apply, there will be no applicants. I encourage students to get in the short lines of life. If you want to be first, he said, you must be last. Be a servant. Don't seek to elevate yourself. Rather, strive to be a servant and lift up others. To me, this is exactly what Rotary is about, the short lines in life. Thanks, Marga.
Thank you, Connor. It should be a universal principle. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, well, we have good news to share about our members, and join me in congratulating Michael Driscoll, who has started a new job. Michael is going to be the Data Product Senior Associate Lead at Avant, and he started with his job in May. Michael, well done. Okay. So now I would like to share with you several members of our club participated in the district conference last weekend. And our club was mentioned a number of times, and we received several awards. Take a look. Okay. Of course, one of the awards was for the Outstanding Speaker Series. So thank you, David Hirsch. Thank you, Don Garner, for being co-chair and bringing us really remarkable speakers like Warren today and many others. Marshall won the Vocational Service Award, and for his work with the Rotary Network and helping structuring a way of having Rotarians help other Rotarians. Connor, okay, he won the Planning Ahead Award. So, and I think your thought of the day was very much in tune with your award. Our past president, Cheryl McIntyre, awarded the Preserving Rotary History Award for her tremendous work at the Paul Harris Home remodeling and the Paul Harris Home Foundation. And the Rotary Club of Chicago won the award for the virtual social events. I was at one of them, and I have to tell you, it was really, really fun. So we should join them as well. So we have also, as I mentioned earlier, many members have joined our club. We've had over 25. And I would like to announce that we are continuing calling for new members. We ask our members to bring a friend, but we have a new membership campaign underway. And it's going to be starting on June 1st. And we're going to have an initiation fee of $150, but there's going to be 3 months, I believe, with no dues. So our potential members can come, get a taste of what we do, participate in our in-person service projects, come to our lunches, and then, in those 3 months, they will decide whether they would like to join our club. So that is what I have to tell you about membership, and let's continue growing because, it's just great. So our upcoming events, we have upcoming the Rotary Convention starting on June 12th through the 16th. Mark your calendars for our next exciting opportunity to connect with Rotary members worldwide. The theme of the year, as you very well know, is Rotary Opens Opportunities, and the cost to register is $65. Last year, I don't know how they pulled this together because of the pandemic. RI and the staff had to switch from an in-person convention in Honolulu to a virtual convention. And I hear that they've had about 50,000 people participate in the convention. So we're not going to Taipei this year. We're going to be online, but, just come and take a look and participate. It's really amazing. So then one of the things we're going to have very remarkable guests, such as Sylvia Whitlock, who is the first woman that was a club president of a club, and Bruce Aylward, a good friend of Rotary from the World Health Organization, is coming back to speak to us. And I'm sure he's going to talk about where polio is today and what is happening with COVID. Also, we have a leadership-led meet and greets. So you will have a chance to join the RA president from Germany, Holrek Nag, the president-elect Shekhar Mehta from India, and Jennifer Jones, the president nominee, the very first female president of Rotary International in history. So at each one of our sessions, these 1 hour sessions, you will learn more about them, what they stand for, what they're working on, and their hopes for Rotary future. As you know, Rotary is going through a lot of changes. We're moving with the times because if we don't do it, change is going to happen anyway. So these are really great and inspiring people to listen to. There's going to be a virtual cooking class, and you need additional registration for that. And as you see in the slide on the screen, Rotary Trivia, DJ Dance Party, that I want to see how that happens. The virtual photo booth and a virtual 5K walk to end polio. So check the link, register today, and I look forward to seeing you there. Also, another important topic we have is the district, our district. I'm going to talk about the slide. A Safe Haven is organizing another run walk, which is the Run to End Homelessness on from July 17th through the 25th. Members have participated in the past, and I invite everybody to reserve a spot and take part of it. Connor? Oh, no, I don't know what happened with the slide. Anyway, so we have another event. Would you like to say something, Connor? Oh, okay. I thought, I don't know what happened. Okay, sorry for that. Well, now that I have you on the screen, can you tell us a little bit about the talk you will be giving at the Box Hill Central Club in Melbourne, Australia?
Yeah, so most of you might remember Mark Bala. He wrote a book called Toilet Warrior. He does a lot of work in India regarding toilet installations. So he was he spoke at our district conference several years back, and he is the president of Australia's top, Box Hill Rotary Club. He's wrapping up his year as president, and so he's asked, he put together he thought, what better way to wrap up the year than talk about the future of Rotary, kind of where we're headed, where we're going. And so I'm excited to be on the panel with two other illustrious speakers as well. And I'm just excited for the opportunity to represent this club and our district in Australia. Thanks, Marga.
Thank you so much, Connor. You make us proud. So great. Okay. Now, the district is 6450. Our district has a DEI committee. Our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And we all members are invited to discuss a book called This Book is Anti-Racist, 20 Lessons on How to Wake Up, Take Action, and Do the Work. The author is Tiffany Jewell. And this will take place on June 13th from 1 to 3 p.m. So you can register at the Rotary District website or take a look at the chat box. The information to register is there. All right. So the talk is going to be about learning about social identities, the history of racism and resistance against it, and how you can use your anti-racist lens and voice to move the world toward equity and liberation. Okay. So, so I invite you for the upcoming meetings. We always check and register on the website. Now, as you know, on June 15th, on the 22nd, we're going to have hybrid meetings starting. What we highly ask members is that you register when we have those in-person meetings or hybrid as well. please make sure you register by Monday, because the Union League Club, due to these new adjustments they need to make due to the pandemic, they need to know in advance how many people we are going to have at our lunches. So it used to be more flexible before, but let's all cooperate with our administrators and the club, so we can they know what number of people to expect to our in-person meetings. Okay, so I would like to know, we have committee meetings coming up. Of course, you need to know that everybody is invited to any of the committee meetings. The dates are in the calendar, but the ISC, International Services Committee, meets tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. The PR and Marketing Committee will meet on Thursday, June 17th at 4 p.m. The next board meeting, which in fact is going to be my first board meeting, is on July 6th at 4 p.m. And the Community Service Committee is meeting on Thursday, July 8th at noon. All right, we continue having the Friday roundtables at the Union League Club. Okay, and so at noon, this is just a social time. So feel free to come and join. We've had a steady number of guests and members coming because they were dying to meet in person. So feel free to do that. I would like to introduce the guests now that we have. So let me look at the list. But Adam Hilo, are you here?
Here I am. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, dear friend. I'm good. I'm Hilo Adam, and I'm from Niger, District 9102. And I'm glad to be here and listen to Mr. Warren. It's very inspired. I'm glad to be here.
It's really has been an inspiring speak about leadership. So okay, well, good to have you come back, Ken Westerberg. Okay, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kent, and I'm coming from Sweden, and I'm in the club of Stockholm West, the next oldest club in Stockholm. I also are president-elect for the moment, for the fourth time, actually. It's starting to become a habit, this one. And I also a board member of the RGHF, the Global History Fellowship.
All right, the very famous, History Fellowship. Okay, all right. So then we have Richard Kalungi. If you can hear me, would you like to introduce yourself? Well, I guess he can't hear.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Marga. I could continue.
Well, it's good to have you again. So come back next week as well. Okay. So next week we're having the club assembly. We encourage everybody to come because there have been so many things that happened and got done this year that you will be delighted to hear where we are. So to remind you, June 22nd is an in-person and Zoom meeting, and June 29th is going to be the installation. So what I would like to close the meeting now is reading the four-way test. So, Richard, would you like to read the four-way test?
Oh, yes, I could.
Okay.
Okay, the Rotary forward test together. The things we think, say, or do. One, is it the truth? Secondly, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Richard, very much. And with that, I close the meeting.